I look down, I want to make sure I can see the whole eyeball.
You mentioned weight, Ricky. I want to touch on that for a second. Balance-wise,
Oh, that type of weight. I thought you were talking.
no, not that type of weight. About the swing of the gun. We've talked about the weight of the gun. We've talked about point of impact, matching it to what breaks a target. So yeah, I wanted to just cover some nitty-gritty, good information for the shooters because they've been asking us, and we've been doing these, once a week, answer the questions of the listeners thing. But you can never really spend too much time on weight, point of impact, setup, spending the time to get it done properly. So I think, this is going to be a short, to the point, get it done episode. Welcome to another episode of Trap Talk. I'm your host, Zach Nannini, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Richard Marshall Jr. Welcome to the show, Ricky.
What's up, my buddy?
Oh, we're living good. We've been doing a lot of episodes, interviewing some great people. We had Charlie Long, we had Shelby Skaggs, we had Jeff Wagner, a few other folks down
Jerry
there.
Williams.
Jerry Williams. I mean, everyone down in Arizona, people are loving those episodes. They're getting ready to come out. So that's fantastic. But we wanted to go old school today and just kick it, me and Ricky, and give you guys some knowledge drops. So where I wanted to go with today's conversation is really talking about just straight up gun fit, straight up, how do we set up a shotgun? Where does a guy start if he's new into the game? What are some point of impact things? And we go from there. And even like weight and balance. Like, should there be more weight in the back, weight in the front, more weight in the center? I want to hear your perspective on it and then a little bit of my perspective, and we'll just go there. So what do you think, Rick? If someone's starting out right away, is there a specific point of impact that they need to have to be successful? Or what's where do you start somebody?
I believe your point of impact should be where you look and the target breaks. I mean, that's how I started. When I was, 13, I pulled a gun out and it was a hunting gun. It shot flat. You were taught to cover up the target. And then as I got into a trap gun, it was like, hey, you need to see the target. Now, how I see a target and you see a target's two different ways, let alone the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of shooters that shoot see a target. So I always say, set the gun up to where you're breaking the target, and then you worry about the point impact as far as knowing what it is. You know what I'm saying?
And to break that down further for the listeners, it's not as important to say my gun's 100% high or 50-50. Yep. It's important to see that smoke ball. And what Ricky always educated me and taught me on when he was instructing me and I was littler is he's like, Zach, get the gun to smoke ball the target. And I still have a little trouble with smoke balling the targets nowadays.
That's because he wants you to skeet choke.
It's that light choke that I use. But and that's joking. I keep a full in, even though Ricky says I don't. But so, soot ball. And I think Bobby Chambers talked to us about going on post 3 and setting up the gun for the 27-yard line because that's where you want it to be most effective. Now, if we're talking new shooters, they're not setting it up for the 27-yard line. They're setting it up for probably 16 to 20 yards, right?
Honestly, what I do this with a lot of shooters. Let's go to the 27. When I do private classes at times, if someone is shooting a brand new gun, I'll take them back to post 3, 27-yard line. They might be like, well, I'm a 25-yard shooter. Well, this is where you want to be, right? So let's set it up here because as you move forward, you learn how to shoot the gun. So that's how I personally going step by step. When I get a new gun, I go out, I stand on post 3, 27-yard line, set the trap on a true straightaway. And now, of course, if I say I get another Krieghoff, same type, trap special, I'll look at where my current rib is set. And I'll try to get the new rib. Okay, I'm going to get it right there. Now, I might go out because everything's different. Metal's different. I might have to move it up a little bit, move it down. But what I'd say for a brand new shooter, say they're going out and they're buying a BT99, okay? Set it up to where you have a true figure eight. You're seeing stacked beads, not space, but stacked beads.
Correct.
And then take it out there and maybe stand on the 16-yard line, post three, shoot a couple straightaways, and then back up. Now, if you get to where you're backing up and you're like, oh, I'm having to, cover that target up, or then we can adjust, the comb and such. But you want to start where you have a starting point, and that's that true figure eight.
And that true figure eight is so powerful. I mean, I think it's easier on the eyes. It allows you to flow through over the top. And what we talked about in some short episodes was getting too far behind the rib, getting too far behind where the beads are stacked, and you're actually covering up your right eye. So I think, that's happening more than not. I think there's also a lot of shooters that maybe jack it up too high where they're looking in that no man's land in between the beads, and their eyes catching off that, which if you go high enough, you got to get your eyes looking above and looking at the tip or past the gun if you are going to crank that, that comb up to the moon. But, if you don't have an adjustable rib like me and Ricky have, and adjustable combs, I mean, you're kind of stuck to, using like a moleskin or some
moleskin, or they have there used to be a system, I can't remember the name of it, and it's a pretty trick deal. It was basically a sleeve that had like rubber spacers, put it in, but you want to make sure to try, because that's the one thing I've noticed in a lot of the classes lately I've been teaching is the shooters are, they're looking down at and they're barely can't see your eye. Well, you can here, you can see my left eye, can't see my right eye. And and they're like, well, no, I'm seeing the target. Well, you're seeing the target with your left eye.
Yeah, you're not seeing it over the top of the rib.
That you can see. I look down, I want to make sure I can see the whole eyeball, and that pupil then, okay, and everybody's a little different, but making those little adjustments makes a big difference. I mean, prime example at the Grand American this year, Anna Raw. I had to do a little quick adjustment on her gun, moved it up just a little bit. She went out and broke 100 in the doubles championship, her first hole. So it's the little thing. If you can't see, you can't break a target.
It makes a difference. And I'm going to tend to agree with you if somebody's shot at any level, over a couple thousand rounds. I think that setting up from the 27 moving forward is a good way to go. I will say that I've dealt with some people that are walking to the trap for the very first time, and they're having trouble swinging the gun at 16 yards. And I do think there's something to be said about hitting it up close and then moving back if they're really new. Brand new, right? But if you've shot ATA and you've been around, and even if you're a 20-yard shooter and you understand, I think setting it up and getting it to where you're learning to go to that position. Yeah, it really hurts you, and the amount of point of impact difference between what I would say is perfect at 16 yards and perfect at 27 might be 10 or 15 or 20% of point of impact. It's not. It's not.
That, and then here's the other thing is when you're setting a gun up is making sure it fits in the pocket. Okay, and that's another thing is when you purchase your gun. Okay, no matter what it is. I always try to tell people, number one, doing gun lifts, get those muscles to where you can handle the gun. But you need to, at home, in a mirror, and I don't have a mirror here in the office, but in a mirror, mount that gun 100, 200 times to get where you can consistently mount it in the same spot. That is a very important step in setting up a gun and gun fit. And that's where I think a lot of shooters, they fall off from that is, listen, we all started at one time or another. For me, it was 36 years ago. And I remember as a kid, my coach and mentor, Frank Hoppy, was always, big on, and he did the double clutch. I don't know. You saw Frank shoot, didn't you, Zach?
Yeah. He
remember when he would boom, and then boom. and it was locked in. The first mount was okay. Okay, there's a spot now in, and he did that every time. Now, if it might be, oh, and then it was in, but he did it till it was correct. And people used to always go, "Man, he's taking a little long. He's doing a little this." I said, "Well, but he's getting it in the pocket." So that's where you need to be. If it's not right, then it's bad.
So just to speak on my own experience, if and I've had guns where I'm mismounting the stocks, and if I'm putting the gun lower in the shoulder, higher in the shoulder, more left, more right, I'm changing point of impact. And people don't understand that, but Dave Kelly used to tell me he shot a flat rib MX3, and he's like, man, if I drop that gun down in my pocket low enough and I do this, I'm taking that elevation of that gun up a little bit, right? Yeah. Versus if I put it up here, I'm flattening the gun out, right? So just in the way that you move, in the dynamics,
the movement of the barrel, yes. And that, because when you're locked up tight, you can only move the barrel so much. When you're down low, you can do the teeter. And that's what Dave, it was so funny. I remember talking to Dave one time when we were shooting together, and I watched him. He shot post 5. I'd shoot, post 1. That's because, he'd be slow, and people were like, oh my God, what's he doing over there? I said, oh, he's writing a book. It's okay. So, but Dave was shooting, and he got a high target, and he said, I made that gun shoot higher. Well, the reason he did is he dropped his shoulder. Well, you drop your shoulder, the gun goes up,
Correct.
So there's little things, especially, shooting those old MX3 specials, the flat ribs. Most of them were a fixed stock. Of course, they're fixed rib, but yeah, any gun, no matter if you're shooting a hunting gun, you want to be that figure 8, and you can maybe even get a little higher point impact. And that's why, going back, when, we were talking to Dave about it. We talked to Jerry Williams, and Charlie Long, about people bending barrels. That's why they used to bend a barrel.
They did it, and I'm not going to sit here and recommend that on the show. But what I will say is that is the stuff that has happened, and people are doing, at your own risk. If you want to bend a barrel, I mean, I know people have broke them and messed them up. I've seen people snap them, but I think the other thing, we had a gentleman ask us about point of impact in relative to the gun, and Ricky shoots a little bit of a flatter point of impact than me because he moves the gun really well. But if you were going to have 10 different guns, all different guns, would they all be the same point of impact? I would say no. It would depend on how you move the gun, right? If you're moving the gun faster, you're not going to probably require as much point of impact as if you're moving the gun slower. I mean, would you agree with that, Ricky? As far as the move?
Yeah, I would just say this. All my guns are pretty close to the same point of impact, going from, my sporting gun to skeet gun. I like to try to keep everything relatively close. That way it's no difference.
But also, all of your guns are relatively the same weight, relatively the same. Your equipment, when I'm talking, your equipment is, you've got 10 Krieghoffs all set off the same way. I'm talking about a guy who's got a BT99 over here, he's got a TM1 over here, he's got a Kohler over here, he's got this and that. I mean, I've shot
they all shoot different, and they all move a little different, and that's where you got to look at stepping away from that and going to each gun. The center of balance is different. The length of pole makes a difference. I shoot a 16-inch length of pole on my trap gun, a 15-inch length of pole on my sporting guns, and skeet gun stuff. So everything's a little different, but it still balances the same. And that's why I love the Krieghoff, because I like the balance of it. But, I do own multiple other stuff, and
But I mean, there's guys that have the one thing, they're good equipment, one thing, they're using that, and is what it is. And then there's these guys that are career gun buyers, right? I know, an example, my buddy in California, his name's George Barral. You've probably met him. We called him Crazy George. Well, he loved buying different guns and trying different guns. He wasn't ever going to try to go make the All-American team. He got his happiness from I want to get this gun right, and then I'm going to get to the next gun, and then I'm going to get to the next gun. And, he probably had, 50 guns that he'd gone through in the years, buying and selling them and doing that thing. But, that being said, he had some guns that were slower. He had the point of impact jacked up. And then, at one time I remember him giving me a TM1 Perazzi, and it was like a lightning bolt. And, I was like, how high does this thing shoot? Because, I literally came up to the back and blew it up. And he's like, oh, it shoots about 60-40. And I'm like, no way. Because the way I was turning in with that gun, it was pushing, through the targets really, really well.
Yeah.
You mentioned weight, Ricky. I want to touch on that for a second. Balance-wise.
Oh, that type of weight. I thought you were talking.
No, not that type of weight. Balance-wise, do you think there's a good spot to keep the weight of the gun? Are you more in between the hands kind of person, more back-weighted, more front-weighted?
I like it between the hands, and that way when you're moving, everything moves together versus if you have a butt heavy, the stock heavy weight, then it's real whippy. If you have the barrel heavyweight, then it's real sluggish trying to get to the target. So if it's between the hands, because when we're shooting, this hand's moving the gun, correct. This hand's just holding it. So you want it in between there, so it's a perfect balance. And it, like I always say, if you have a light gun, it's going to move fast. Like say the TM1. It's a lighter barrel. It's going to move quick. It's going to stop even quicker.
Correct.
Okay. You have a heavy barrel. It's going to move a little sluggish, but once you get it moving, it's like a freight train.
It's like the difference between, a Toyota Corolla and a train, right? Like you have momentum. Like when me and Ricky get our momentum moving, it's very hard to stop that, right? But
it is. I know.
John Slinker, he's a little easier to push through, so it's one of those things. And shotguns work the same way, people. So, understanding, I'm with Ricky on this 100%. I think if you can balance the gun in between your hands, and a lot of times I remember guys would take it on the hinge pin and they'd balance it on their finger and the gun would sit on the hinge pins in between. And if it was level, that was a good starting spot because between where my backhand was and my front hand was, that hinging area was pretty much the middle.
Middle of it.
The more weight that you put in the back, the faster the tip of the gun's going to go. The more weight that you hang out on the front of the sail, the slower the tip of the gun's going to go, right? So, it's just preference, people. Go out there and find what works for you. If you're blowing... I had a Grand America 88 Perazzi.
Top single.
I shot for a while. And I shot it really well in doubles, but it had backbore work through... I don't remember... I think it was Briley or Engleport did backbore work on it, and they thinned out those barrels. They were thin wall barrels. It was a really nice gun, but it was so light and the point of impact was so high that I could not control it. And I ended up having to hang, 4 ounces on the barrel because it was just a lightning bolt, right? So, and it looked like hell and I hated it, but the only thing that I could do to keep that thing, from just jumping all over that second target was put some weight out there in the front and smooth out those barrels. So, it's something to try, I think, people.
Well, and that's one of the things is what I would really love to see, our listeners, viewers, everybody out there in the shooting world is take your guns and get them set up. A lot of people pull a gun out and don't really take the time to get it set up. I do that occasionally here at our local club of guys that come in and, do a private, lesson. And they're like, well, can we set my gun up? And it might take an hour, to get it set up.
That's time well spent.
But that's the thing is, without doing that, you got to remember every time you stick that shell, down the barrel, and I got one sitting here, on the desk, the old Target Max, you stick that in every time. That's $2 or $3 every time, Well,
yeah.
And if you don't, that's a lot of money. if it's not set up correctly. So take the time. But the other thing for the new shooters out there is get the proper ammo. You know, don't go out. I've been seeing this lately in some classes. Is they're shooting not hunting loads. They're shooting 1250s at singles or
Yeah.
1200s at singles, and they're shooting 7.5s. I believe an ounce and an 8 light 1145, 1165.
Yeah, under
Ounce and
1200
an
feet
8.
a second.
Yeah, you don't need the 1200s, and that's where I see some. I've actually run into some newer shooters shooting them, and some kids that have started to do they get the yips, the
Yeah,
recoil flinch.
it's too much power, guys. I mean, you can kill a target, smoke a target with that lighter shell. I think, I have seen a lot of people use the max dram honey loads when they come out, and it's
Yeah.
like, they're getting, it's the Walmart specials, right? But if you're going to get into it, shoot light loads until you need heavy loads, and until you need heavy loads is until you get to distance, right? You don't need all that power until you
For
start shooting
16s, an ounce and eighth, or even for the newer shooter starting, ladies, young kids,
1 ounce.
shoot a 1 ounce 8. I mean, it'll smoke a target. Throw that full choke in. I do allow for newer shooters. Shooting a mod, high mod, light full to try. But once they get rolling, I always want to get them into a full because you got to know where that gun's shooting.
You really do. I think that's so important.
Yes.
Figuring out, we've talked about the swing of the gun, we've talked about the weight of the gun, we've talked about point of impact, matching it to what breaks a target, because so many people want to go to the patterning board and set it up and say, well, this is my point of impact. Well, no, this is that point of impact that you might have shot with the last gun.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that this is the point of impact for this gun.
You can try it and get it, but I'll tell you, you need to tweak it. Just that little move, and people go, oh, one turn here. I said, trust me, moving it up a 16th, it all makes a world difference when we're shooting, because you got to remember, the target, we're 16 yards from the target. You're breaking it at 25, 30 yards, 35 yards. So you want that little bit at a distance so.
Yeah, and I think as much to do with point of impact as eye relief, right? Like when we talk about a 16th of an inch, a 16th of an inch of my eye, higher or lower, down that rib, makes all the difference in the world, because I was struggling a couple years ago, and I got down behind the gun too far, and I thought I seen that they were stacked, but I wasn't really paying attention, and then as I was moving to the target, I was pressing down behind, and I was lifting my head because I was losing vision. So, and that happens a lot of the times. Guys get behind the guns, they end up lifting their head because as they're going, they lose sight of that target. So, a 16th of an inch isn't going to change the point of impact that much, but it's going to completely change the way I look down that rib.
Yeah,
and give me
which
the
will
ability
change
to
the
see
point
over
impact
it.
a little bit, but it'll be for the positive, not the negative.
Correct. So yeah, I wanted to just cover some nitty gritty, good information for the shooters, because they've been asking us, and we've been doing these, once a week, answer the questions of the listeners thing, but you can never really spend too much time on weight, point of impact, setup, spending the time to get it done properly. So I think, this is going to be a short, to the point, get it done episode.
Just quick.
Is there
gun fit and
anything
gun
else to
setup.
listen, Rick?
No, I just think, what? Go to your gun dealer, gun store, whatever you're looking to buy. If you want any of the, anything with the shooting world, you can give me a call.
Yeah, call Ricky.
I can get you hooked
Ricky
up.
does sell guns, by the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I can get you hooked up, but get something that's going to work for you, not just because your buddy said, "Oh, you need to buy this," and go shoot some stuff. That figure it out, and give me a holler. And or you guys got any questions? Any of our listeners out there, send them in.
They're coming in. They're coming in left and right. We got 100 questions sitting in the mailbox. So you guys are doing a great job. Remember to comment, like, share our stuff.
That's right.
We love you. Keep sending us the good feedback. Thanks, Ricky, for the time. Also, thanking our sponsors for supporting us. Remington, Wenig, Ricky Marshall Shooting Clinic, Shot Tracker, and the one and only Zach Danini here to serve you. I think that's it. We're good. And we'll catch you guys next Friday.
See ya.
All right.
Hello, Trap Talk listeners. Zach Nannini here, and I'd like to thank our show sponsor, Remington. And today, I would like to go into what shells I use when I'm training and when I'm shooting tournaments. First of all, we start with the Gun Club. This is a great shell. I shoot an 1145 ounce and 1/8, and this is what I shoot for singles and both shots of doubles. The only reason I don't shoot this in tournaments is because I like a little bit of a harder shot, a little bit of a harder break, but it works great, and it's the same speed as this STS shell. So this STS shell, a little bit harder shot, figure 8 wad column, smokes the targets a little bit harder. Also, I shoot for singles and doubles, both shots. And then when I go to the back fence and I want to put the smoke on them, I bring out the Nitro 27 ounce and 1/8, 7.5. It's a 1235 shell, blast the targets, works really well. I hope these shells work for you, and I want to thank Remington for supporting Trap Talk.
Hello, Trap Talk listeners. Today's episode is brought to you by Wenig Custom Gun Stocks.
That being said, a custom gun stock is going to elevate your game to get the same fit every single time.
And I can attest to that. I broke hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hundreds with my Wenig Custom Gun Stock.
I haven't broke hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, Rick, but I did break 100 from the 27 within 7 days of getting my stock, and broke 2 more that year and loved it.
Here, this is
Okay. You would take it or me?
We'd like to thank Wenig Custom Gun Stocks for supporting Trap Talk.
That being said, everyone knows.
Winners shoot Wenig.
Are we doing the import?
Shoot the first one and then loop to the second one and drive through it. Ugh. Just like that.
Great shot. Shot 2. Great shot.
We're just trying to help every shooter out there, no matter if you're an expert or a beginner, and this product will take your game to the next level.
Works for any of the disciplines. As long as it can find a clay in the image, it will figure out how it's moving and how that shot pattern is going.
Ugh. Now in that shot, I intentionally shot high, which is most people do.
That's what you did.
Yep. So outside the pattern. Now what's it say for the correction of that?
1 foot.
Yep, that'd be correct. Now in this one, I will smoke the target.
If people want to purchase this unit, what's the best way to do it? I mean, is it through your guys' website? Is there a phone number to call, or what's that situation?
Yeah, go to our website, takeaimtech.com, and an online store. We have inventory. We'll ship usually within 24 hours.
Huge thank you to Jim and Bob at Take Aim Tech for supporting Trap Talk.
In 2023 here, we have done 37 state shoots, 7 of the 11 satellite grants. And
So most of
we now have, I think it's 241, 242 clubs across the country using our system.
If a club was wanting to use you, do you have like a base entry level pricing or packages that you advertise, or is it based on the size of the shoots, Greg?
Our base level price is $0. Our complete package system, the whole enchilada, is $0.
0 is a good price.
It's a good price.
The premium members do not pay a pre-squad fee, ever.
Yeah.
For all year.
All year.
Can I buy a lifetime membership?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to
Gotta be
say,
your first lifetime membership.
is there a
I want to
5-year?
be number one. Zach,
We want lifetime memberships for me and Ricky.